Hey everyone, thank you very much for joining us tonight. My name is Walter Uzzolino. I'm the curator of Walter Presents, with Series Channel 4's streaming on-demand service, bringing the very best international drama with English subtitles to UK audiences. So I have the good fortune for living to be watching all these fantastic shows and talking to the great people who made them. So tonight joining us on stage we have the creators of the show. I'll murder your names, I'm sorry.
No.
Halina Reijn and Carice van Houten and Valkyrie. The creators and the director of the first 5 episodes, and for the next half hour I'll be chatting to them and asking them questions about what you've just seen and what's to come for the rest of the series, and then we'll have the chance for you guys to ask some questions before you're off and have your drink. So thank you very much for joining us tonight, guys. Obviously, I'll start with you, women first. You're the creators of the show, and it's a particularly dark, gripping, quite emotionally absorbing show. So how did you come up with the idea? Where's the origin of this show? And what was your vision for it?
It was a long time ago that we came up with the idea, I think more than 8 years ago. And I think we were both very interested in the theme of sexuality and power, and of course everything through a female lens, and creating female complex characters, but mainly the sexuality and power theme. And then of course we were interested in sex work within the Netherlands and particularly Amsterdam. And then later we found great partners in Belgium, because both of us are quite big fans of the Belgian television and film culture. And so we expanded this whole idea, this world, to Belgium, where it's also a very interesting arena, since it is also half legal, half illegal with sex work. But of course, it's mainly about 3 women who are in their own way struggling with motherhood and struggle to be free, actually. Not to make it too heavy, but you know.
That's very good. Thank you for that. And so tell me, elaborate a bit more about the notion of sex work and human trafficking. It's quite interesting because right at the time where the Dutch government is kind of trying to distance itself from that, and there's petitions to remove the red light district from Amsterdam, etc. What about this particularly dark and quite extreme setting was appealing to you in terms of being able to tell the stories you wanted to tell?
Well, I think because in our first film, Instinct, which is a very different film, but it's basically the same themes, but we think that within the world of sex work, of course, it's such a appropriate world to talk about these things, because it's so clear in that world. You know, you have the pimps and the women behind the windows. I mean, everybody who has been in Amsterdam in the red light district, especially after Me Too, will feel quite astounded that still exists. But on the other hand, we all know that if you make it illegal, that it pops up somewhere else. They call this the water bed effect. And so it's just a very complex problem, of course, all over the world. It's the oldest profession, as they say. And we just thought it would be very interesting to make something about that, but not through a male gaze, because it has been done before. And Carice always says, often it has been portrayed, if you see a strip club in a male sort of like produced or directed film, it's often like a candy shop, instead of that you see the backside of all of this, which we wanted to show without condemning it or judging it. Because what I love about Sylvia's character is that she's a victim and a perpetrator, and she also says to the detective who interviews her, "Who are you to judge me for what I do? You know, what are you doing?" So we encountered this kind of women too when we researched it, who said to us, "Don't portray us as weak, because we are not."
That's very interesting. So let's go back. I want to ask you more about that in a second, but I still want to go back to your collaboration creatively. How do you guys work then? You've known each other for a long time. You met many years ago through films, etc. So you've been long-term friends. So how does the creative collaboration between you two, and then we'll talk to, of course, Valkyrie, work? So you have an idea, you want to tell a story. What happens then?
How does it work? What's the magic? How does it work? Mostly Halina comes up with the idea. Yeah, and I sort of tag along. We
That's really nonsense, but okay.
No, we had this idea, and it really started with us in a little bar, thinking, you know, the Scandinavian TV just was coming up, 8 years ago, and we were like, why can we do something like that? We have the resources. I mean, we have the actors, we have the talent, but we're not used to big productions, and why should we try to make that work? And so maybe we should work with, with Germany or with Belgium together. And then we tried Germany first. We knocked on some doors in our little car, and we did everything by ourselves. And we went to a guy high up in Dutch television, who actually we like to address this anecdote because it's quite telling for our process in it. When we pitched the idea to this guy, very nice guy, but after the pitch he seemed quite interested, and then he said, "And now, ladies, close your ears because we're going to talk about the numbers." So we were like, holy shit, okay, so there's a lot to be done here. And that was, of course, before me too. I think he probably really shit himself if he would say that again. But
yeah, the process of making it was before Wouter came on board. I really want to say that. But the process of making it sometimes had to do a lot with the theme of the series itself, which was kind of ironic. We were often in a room full of men talking about,
female expression.
And all of that. So that was very interesting. I wish we had made a documentary, but unfortunately we didn't. But but I think our process is that we are very much in sync, and that we share this theme of toxic love and sex and power. We and even my recent film Bodies has sort of the same theme, even though it's a very commercial film and very different. But so I feel that we are very much in sync there, and so it's of course also lovely to work with your best friend.
And fun to actually act together.
Yeah,
that was of course.
I can imagine.
And also you feel sorry.
No.
I told myself keep it short.
No, please don't.
Make it long.
Make it long. No, but also the fact that we're responsible for this idea, and that we felt like we are the creators. So whenever something goes wrong in a scene, or when you feel like this set is a bit funny, or you have you can change it, and that gave us a lot of. That it really empowered us.
It was the first TV show you produced through your company, am I correct?
Yeah, and it was the first idea that we had, because we made Instinct because it took us so long to create this, because the ambition was huge, because we were watching The Killing and all these wonderful shows, and we were like, we need bigger budgets to actually make it cinematic, and everything that Wouter did with it, and he pulled that off in a beautiful way. But it took us a long time. So in the meantime, whilst waiting for all these men to say yes to our female-driven idea, we called our company Man Up, just to be ironic about it. And so in the meantime, we decided to make a film called Instinct, and we did that. So we did that first because we had to wait so long for this to get greenlit, but also we were ambitious with, how much money we wanted per episode for the budget. And so when we finally were able to pull it off, it was wonderful to be on set together and to find this wonderful director. We both really tremendously enjoyed working with him.
Which then leads me to the next question, which is, Wouter, how do you become involved, and what, with such formidable, powerful women, how were you not crushed by their incredible creativity? They had a very clear vision and idea for what they wanted to achieve. So how was your involvement, and when did that happen?
No, but they were right. I think I was just finishing the 12 with the
superb show, by the way, which we launched on Channel 4 a year and a half ago. Fantastic program.
Yes, with Belgian producer Peter Boegaert from Iwerks, and he told me we have this project and it's wonderful. You should read it. And actually, I was exhausted after the 12, so I was like, no, I'm not gonna read it because
you were so hard to get. It was incredibly
was it very hard to get?
Yeah, he was like. They were telling us you cannot call him, because we are used to just picking up the phone and being like, "Hi, it's us," and people are like, "Okay." No, I'm sorry.
I was close to this depression.
We weren't allowed to call you. I remember this so well.
But I got lots of WhatsApp messages from Halina. So suddenly she was in Ghent in Belgium, and she was standing there with the project, and I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna do it." So because it was a good project, and also they were still writing. So for me, that was a good opportunity to also dive into the screenplay together with them. I'm not the kind of director who's for hire and just
you don't shoot the script
shots, and so we discussed a lot. And also they were the creators and the actors, so I love to work with actors in a very early stage. So that was perfect for this project.
And it's and guys, you were absolutely right to go to him, by the way. I've been trying to work with him for years. The reality is that it does bring an incredibly filmic premium quality to the whole thing, and you're right. I mean, I love Dutch TV anyway because I'm a fan anyway. But it tends to, and some, I'm Italian, some Italian TV as well, tends to be behind the big Scandi premium, etc. And you pulled it off beautifully because it's an incredible piece, and every episode feels like a movie.
And I think what's very special about Wouter is that he really collaborated with us, and that, of course, he brought his own vision and all his ideas, but it felt never like he tried to dominate us or didn't understand what we were trying to portray in these women. And that is quite an accomplishment, I feel, for a man, that he was able to really put himself in that position and also enjoyed working with us. I really, you never know, but,
No, it was great. Well, in a minute, I'll also ask you, first I want to talk about the characters a little bit more, and then I'll ask you, Wouter, about the branding of them, because it feels to me, and I've now watched it more than once, that as the series progresses, there's a very clever, careful, calibrated branding of these characters as their emotional lives evolve. So it's the lighting, the framing, the choreography of the performance just makes them into very distinctive brands. I feel that Esther and Sylvia and Evie, I can see them in different lights and shades and angles, but we'll talk about that in a minute. But let's go to the characters, because it's very interesting what you said earlier, which is perpetrator and victim and busting the stereotypes. So this is an interesting one which struck me from the beginning, which is these women are all finding themselves at very complex junctures in their personal and professional lives, but they're never ever victims. And so I would like to talk about the characters individually and how they appeal to you and how you build them. And I'd start with you, Carice and Sylvia, because that's such a difficult character, because she is, to find the route into making her sympathetic is very, very hard, because she's harsh, unforgiving, but at the same time broken. And you said earlier that you had done a lot of research, and you mentioned that you, in fact, spoke to sex workers and the police and people that work in human trafficking and sort of found real stories to relate to in order to build the character and the performance. What was the journey like, and what was your route into this character?
Well, first of all, I was, of course, challenged to play someone, sex workers. That's very far from, although Game of Thrones not that far. But in terms of nudity, never mind.
That's a different story.
It's a whole different story. I just wanted to portray that world in an honorful way, because I just thought you can easily slip into some sort of cliche of what we think a sex worker is or something, and by speaking to so many different women, they were all so different and had such different stories that it also gave me the freedom to really come up with my own story, to sort of pick from everything a little bit. And also make her, yes, she comes across quite harsh, definitely in this first episode, but you'll also find that she's a survivor. She's a broken, damaged woman who's trapped in this very toxic cycle and toxic dynamic with her pimp/boyfriend, and very dependent, and wants to have a baby, and this guy is not really, we haven't seen that yet, but she wants to have a baby. She's 40, there's a lot of pressure on her, what was the question?
How you work on the characters. How do you find that balance between toughness and genuine delicacy? Because there's an incredibly delicate side to a character, of course.
Yes. What can I say about that? I just don't think I ever I don't enter the character like that. I just feel like it is way more complex than thinking, oh, she's a harsh woman. I just think that there's vulnerability, hopefully, in all the roles that I've portrayed so far, and otherwise I don't find it very interesting. So,
and also the story gives her a lot of background. It's not like she's only what you say, like in this first episode. Of course, she's very strong and dominant, but we wonder, like, how did she get there? And I think that's what we really wanted. We didn't want to just I think our whole mission with our company, and I think for a lot of women, we don't want to create stories about women who are just vulnerable or just strong or just innocent. It's great to see women in complex characters. So what better character than somebody who's and a perpetrator and a victim, which she actually in the scene with the detective becomes so clear, where he actually confronts her with that. And I think what is beautiful about the show, and really works in my eyes if you watch all 10 episodes, is that they are all three of them are sort of in a midlife. And whether you are in sex work or you are a famous opera singer or you are a detective with a beautiful family, they have a lot of similarities. And I think that makes it very human, and that humanity makes it watchable, even though you see very horrible things.
And also they have to free themselves not just from their pimp or from their lives, but it's also from their own thoughts and from their own expectations of what they should be as a woman. Especially also the character of the police officer who regrets having a child or cannot actually bring her career and her motherhood together, and that's of course a big taboo. The end, I cannot finish it.
No, it makes perfect sense. But what about Esther then? Let's talk about Esther, the character, because she also has her journey and her complexity, of course, but she could be in some ways a prime candidate for, not a victim, but, left by her husband and trying to find out what went wrong, and yet she goes on a completely different journey, and actually her sense of sort of moral boundaries evolves completely, and then sort of she embraces this new friendship that she finds in ways that change her radically. So tell me about that character.
Well, of course, she starts out as this sort of protected songbird in a little cage, with her daddy and her husband, and she thinks she needs a child in order to be a real woman. And this is how we find her in this first episode. And then, of course, she goes on this path. I don't know if I can spoil anything, but of course she ends up, No, you're good. You're good. But she becomes obsessed with the sex worker that her husband apparently was visiting and was obsessed with, because in order to understand her husband and where he is, she needs to sort of put herself in the position of this sex worker, like what made her so attractive? Who is this woman? So she almost falls in love with her. And I love that premise. I and the whole Thelma and Louise aspect of it all. And of course we just have fun, playing these characters, because there's such an odd couple, there's also some dark humor in there. But I think and that goes for all three of them, she needs to liberate herself, from this idea that she has to become a mother, that she has to be this daddy's girl, that she has to be this star. And she does, because she goes down into the rabbit hole, basically, and she meets a whole new world, and it does liberate her.
And it becomes a little bit also in a completely different way, but there's a voyeuristic Lives of Others elements there, where these two women look at each other through some sort of glass, and they want to reach out to each other. So which takes me to visuals and the branding, because I may be over-reading into this, but it feels to me that they inhabit a very specific visual universe, Valkyrie. And I don't know if that's how you thought about it, but I see Sylvia very much existing in this kind of neon Bruce Nauman installation type world, and there's sort of all the lovely sort of middle-class pastels of Esther, and the slightly desaturated world for Evie. So how do you go about creating visuals and constructing a visual universe in which these characters can protect themselves?
Yeah, you already told it.
That was just beautiful.
I just used colors, like for Sylvia it was the red color because it's the most expressive world she moves in, and for Esther it was like more cold kind of blue color, and Evie is somewhere between, just to show the contrast between the environments of those women. And as the series evolves, those women are going to be in each other's worlds, and also the colors will
Yes, and the palette evolves. It's quite magical to watch. I mean, you have to really watch it, because.
So I'm glad you saw it, because that was
because you watch it and it's a bit not black and white, but the grading at the beginning is like, okay, she's the sort of victimized prostitute, she's the posh singer, she's the cop, and then bit by bit this color palette merges, and they merge as characters. So I thought it was incredibly subtle, and without knowing it, you're drawn by the visuals as much as by the performances and the writing.
Smart man.
Smart guy.
But tell me a bit, so I want to understand the Belgium-Holland side of it, because I'm a fan of Belgian TV a lot, obviously, and I know Dutch television quite a lot as well, and actually really love it, because I think there's a really sort of quite visceral way to tell stories, and often, and I'll be honest, often it's not visually brilliant enough, but you can tell a very good story over there. And they can orchestrate it very well visually. So how did it come together? And the show is obviously Antwerp, Amsterdam mostly. is there something which I genuinely don't know about it? Are there any elements of the different perception of sex and sex work and sexual politics and family and being a woman and having a partner between the two countries? Is there a tension in there, or are these worlds effectively a mirror image of each other?
I think it's a good question, but I think there are some very small jokes. I mean, of course, there are cultural differences, and of course, we also encountered them whilst making the show. But I personally worked all my life with Ivo van Houten, who's a Belgian director. So for me and for both of us, it felt so safe and wonderful. But it's not truly addressed. I think we just a little bit stole the idea from shows like The Bridge, where they combine their forces, because we're all just smaller countries and we're not America, so we need to sort of like combine forces, and it's always, of course, weird because we speak the same language, so you would say like, why not, let's do it. And like you, especially so many years ago, I think in Holland it was still quite hard to find great television and great films, and it's getting a lot better. I mean there's so many wonderful content, but we really looked up to them, and we really wanted that. We really wanted all the visual language we were just addressing. That's what Wouter brought,
And also, it's very nice to work with Belgians, because we are, as Dutch people, we're so blunt and so sort of straightforward and sort of, rude and rough. And then when you go to Belgium, they're all like very polite, and it's like hardly, you hardly notice that there's a crew on set. It's so refreshing.
Yeah.
It's really great.
We don't speak.
I was about to ask you about that.
Yeah. So we did. I think in order for this to work, and there are a lot of similarities about sex work and the legalization of it, and all of it, and the ideas of how to solve it. So I think we just try to combine forces more than address the differences for the show.
I want to ask you a question about gender, and I don't want to make it too complicated, but it's quite interesting. You're talking about Evie, which is a character which is not here, and so we won't dig too deep into that. But what's fascinating about the female cop is that in so many ways, she is a perfect stereotypical male cop of so many cop shows, because she's overworked, drunk, and shit at being a dad.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You
No,
can't
I
keep the
know.
family together, right? And so she's and she turns that upside down, and it's the female character has that, and her husband Gust, who's so lovely. I mean, he's such a lovely man. And you feel for him because he's brutalized by her complexity, and still loves her and won't let her go. So it's quite an interesting journey. So tell me about that sort of gender reversal, and what were you trying to do with that?
Well, I think you really say it right, because I remember us trying to create that character, and there was so much taboo around it, because if you tell anybody, a financier or whatever, you're going to create a character of somebody who regretted having children, it's going to be like, no! I remember playing Nora in Nora's Doll's House of Ibsen, and every night, and then we were talking about the 2000s, when she leaves for children, in the last scene, the whole audience was going to, it's the biggest taboo ever. And so what we did at a certain point, Esther Gerritsen was the main writer of the show, she just pretended that it was a guy. That was the only way she could write it. So to pretend while typing, being like, okay, well, it would totally liberate her. But it's complete bullshit, of course, because every woman has these dark thoughts. I mean, we all saw The Lost Daughter, which is a wonderful film by Maggie Gyllenhaal, and it addresses this in such a genius way. So for us, it's it's maybe the most important character in a way. I really love it, and now you can only see the beginning of it, but if you watch the full show of her characters, it's amazing. But it is dark, and it is. Again, it's one of the last taboos that that we need to address, I feel.
It was a brilliant character, and you're right, she's the glue in the end, isn't she? Because whilst you two are mirror images of each other, she holds that mirror somehow.
Yes.
Yeah.
Valkyrie, tell me a little bit more about. So you directed the first 5 episodes.
Yeah.
Right.
And also he set, of course, because he was our first director, he set the whole tone, the style, everything.
And so tell me a bit about the work in terms of art direction, orchestration, look and feel, above and beyond the color palette, obviously, for our protagonists.
Yeah, actually the idea was, because if you walk around as a tourist in Amsterdam and Antwerp, you see this kind of Disneyland kind of show with beautiful lighting and stuff. But doing the research, we really went to sex workers, but also we met some pimps as well. And if you dive into this world, it really gets, incomprehensible. It's like really, it's kind of strange. Is it like legal? Is it illegal? So we're trying to start with a kind of Disneyland world. When you see Sylvia go into the club, it's really pretty. But as the series evolves, it gets more darker and more really without the colors. You will see. So that was the main idea to tell the story, because we all know these red light districts and they all look quite pretty, but they're really dangerous because, for example, we had to build our own district in Antwerp because the police couldn't guarantee our safety. So that's
so in Amsterdam it was the genuine red light district you filmed.
Yeah.
But in Antwerp you had to recreate it.
Yeah. Because they were telling us it's not safe to do it because it's mafia, so it's they're all human traffickers along the way. So if you meet them, they're really nice. We had
we had dinner with these men. It was really it was very disturbing. It's very dark.
Something about it.
Well, we somehow managed to invite them to a dinner. But I mean, I would
there
not
was one
like.
character, the big guy you see.
Yeah,
he was one of the.
Yeah, he is connected, and he brought us to them, and they were really open, and they answered all of our questions. But it was extremely scary in a way, and I will never forget that. That was extremely dark, and I'm happy when we were home. But I was also intrigued by it. It's also seductive, and it was very intense. But I think you're right. I remember when we built the red light district, when we were shooting there in Antwerp, a lot of people who lived there actually were very confused because they thought, what's happening to our neighborhood? And we changed this really hardcore art house cinema into the front of that. Remember, we changed that into a brothel, and people were like, what is happening in our city? But,
But it was a very well lit brothel. It looked really, very exciting. I want to ask you, as you talked about how you worked and how you shaped it, what's it like for you as a director to shepherd this to a point where you direct 5 episodes and then you let it go for the remaining 5?
I had a lot of confidence in Anke Blondé, who did episode 6 to 10. So it was hard, but you will see at the end of episode 5, I did a statement because I made my ending.
Yeah.
But it was okay. 10 episodes had been too much at that point in my life. So I'm glad I did 5, and I'm really proud of those.
I think you should be, and I'll make some space for you guys for some questions now, but I would say it's impossible to stop watching this show, and at times it is quite dark and bleak, at times it's incredibly funny, because as you were saying, the reaction, sometimes you just can't help laughing because it is quite funny.
There's dark humor in it, and I also think that we all wanted to also, of course, address real important to us at least themes and topics, but at the same time we wanted to create a very addictive thriller, where you just want to keep watching. So hopefully that
it is, and I would say, and this is my job, so I always say this, but to watch it to the end, because I found myself polishing off in 2 evenings actually. I couldn't stop watching it. And what is superb about it is that, the grammar of a thriller is the grammar of a thriller. And of course this is brilliant and very cleverly subversive, but some elements of grammar are there and your viewers can tell, and you kind of go, yes, I bet these 2 women somehow will converge, etc. However, this is so unlike that. Because you get to episode 9 and you think, okay, and it's more and more the adrenaline, and you kind of go, oh my gosh. And then episode 10 does something truly bizarre and truly astonishing. And when you're watching it in the first act of the episode, and I won't reveal anything, and I'm normally terrible at spoiling things. At the beginning, you're going to go, it's quite a tame F10. Is it all happened now? Is it over? And then it just goes into a very interesting place. And then it really subverts your perception of anything in life. So I do recommend you watch it now. But before handing over to you guys, I want to ask one more question from all of you. What are you up to next? Because I'm rapidly waiting for your next film, TV show, whatever. So can you talk us through what you're working on right now?
We are with our company Man Up. We have 2 projects that we're developing in the Netherlands, and then I'm also working on projects in the United States.
And I believe you're about to launch your latest film.
My film is coming out here, I believe, in a week or something. I don't really know, but very soon. Yeah, so my film has been released all over the world. It's called Bodies, Bodies, Bodies for people who are interested.
And what is the genre?
Dark comedy, horror, A24, something hip and happening, Gen Z, Pete Davidson kind of film.
Excellent. What about you, Carice?
What about me? I am a mother, and I am trying to be. Yeah, I'm also trying to sort of shift my career a little bit towards more designing things. I might go into sort of more interior design. I'm so sick of this job.
But your new show is coming out.
I have a show coming out, The Dangerous Liaisons for Stars. That's coming out in October, which is very. That was a great show to be working on, and I'm just sort of.
Waiting for
someone call me. I'm good, man. I'm good. Fine.
Valter, what about you?
I'm just finishing a new series, 1985. I'm doing the post-production. It's going to be ready in October. And it's a coming-of-age story set in the 80s in Belgium, where we had this gang, the Brabant killers, who really they terrorized Belgium, and they killed 28 people in like supermarkets, and until today nobody got convicted. So it's like a coming-of-age drama, fiction. You should check it out.
I will. Thank you very much, guys. But shall we ask members of the audience whether you've got any questions? Please raise your hands.
Thank you. I can't believe that was just one episode, so congratulations. It's very evocative. My question is about having the writers, creators, very well-known actresses on set with maybe the smaller characters. I wondered, and also the intimacy, I don't know, of course, what happens in later episodes, but how you go about creating that level playing field for your smaller characters to really kind of blossom and not feel, or I don't know. Do you know what I'm asking?
I know what you're asking. I think that once we started shooting, and we made that very clear to Wouter as well, and I think both of us, even though we have a big mouth and we are, creating stuff, I do think we completely surrendered to him as a director at that point. And it's not that we are secretly directing others. And I think because we are producers on it, we both also really make a point out of making everybody feel welcome and have their space. Because of course, here, not so much, but in our country, we also have this stupid fame. So of course, you're going to go out of your way to make everybody feel comfortable in that sense. Does it answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Any further questions? Oh, there you go. One hand there.
Thanks, guys, for being here. My question is for the two women here. You wrote these characters, and there's a third character as well. Did you write your characters for yourself, or did you write 3 characters and then pick which one you wanted to play?
We had a whole team of writers, so our contribution to the actual typing was not that much. And also Wouter was in the writer's room. Like he said, he's definitely not a director for hire who just does what we tell him to do. He really wants to bring his own, influence on all of that. What we did, of course, we created the characters in our minds, and we were, and of course we sort of, chose. It was pretty obvious what we wanted to play.
Yeah, but there was, remember when we were sort of thinking, are you going to play Sylvia or I'm going to play, we'll see. Let's first get this ball rolling.
Get this show on the road.
And then it was a bit random at some point, like, who was going to play what. It wasn't really, we
At
were
what
beyond.
point was that choice made then? What
I think if it was really up to us, we wouldn't have even acted in it.
Yeah, it was beyond us acting. Like it started with
we just wanted to create
something, but then it then went into this big thing that it didn't really matter who was playing what, as long as we had the whole thing covered.
Yeah, and I do think there was a little bit of talk between us and also with Wouter about what we had played up until then in our careers and what would be most interesting to either one of us as far as a color that we wanted to, you know what I mean? And for me, Esther was more reserved in the beginning, and for her, this role. So we both thought this would be the most challenging. But there were times when we would actually fantasize about casting other people because it was so wonderful to create something instead of, and I'm retired now, I'm never going to act again, and you also love the profession. So you just said no, but we both have a love-hate relationship with acting. We've always had. We're very grateful for our careers, super grateful, but it is sometimes for both of us a struggle.
Yeah, and we're also not too sacred about it, I think.
No,
I don't know.
Well, and it's also insecurity. It's everything. It's not that we're over it at all, but it's more like it's such an intense profession, and we both really like being on the other side of it and creating sort of a bed for others to lay in and blossom and grow, and that is something we really loved doing.
Hi, thanks so much. Can you remember a moment? Did you ever forget the lines and what happened?
I think Carice can talk a lot about how she not forgot the lines, but Valkyrie and Carice can talk about lines.
Carice doesn't say a line what's in the screenplay. She just plays, and every take is something else, which is great. She knew the character, so we were like, you did a great job, but it's not in the screenplay, so but fuck it, let's go on. And, so that's.
So, but I think I want to say something about you too. But
okay.
you are a great combination in that. I feel they really found this chemistry, the two of them together, where Carice could be completely free, and Wouter would love it. And a lot of directors would be intimidated by that because she sometimes goes into another direction. And and also Geert, her co-star who plays the Ingmar, the pimp. He was also really okay with it, right?
Yeah, and that's, of course, I have most of my scenes are with him, and I also found that with a lot of actual male co-stars, it's very difficult to jam, to sort of. And now it sounds like I'm a complete freak that sort of makes up complete different scenes, but I just like to improvise. I just like to go explore, But of course, not all co-stars are, because they've learned their lines and they've done it in the mirror at home, and they know exactly how they think that I should react. And that's not my way of working. I really like it when people sort of go off the book a bit and sort of surprise each other, because I think that's where the magic happens. So it was great to have to find someone who really liked to jam with me in that. But it's also this character that gave me so much freedom, because I don't know if Dutch people might have heard that I'm putting on a very, very thick accent, which made me, also feel very free to just be in this character. I'm not, sounds like okay.
Rewind.
Do you have a minute? Okay, so I think I'm an introvert.
Okay, here we go.
But I mean, I'm not a big talker, so it doesn't sound like I'm not a big. Oh, Jesus Christ! Okay. So it's not like you wouldn't say if you knew me that I'm a big talker. Like,
no,
I
not
talk
at all.
a lot. I'm quite introvert normally, unless I feel very safe, like I feel now. But with that character, I just felt so safe that the words just was coming out of me, and that was very liberating and very therapeutic, in fact, for me as a person.
And then it's wonderful to have a director that picks up on that and that loves that and was inspired by her in that way, and they could use it.
If you're gonna see episode 2, she's giving lap dance class to a new girl, and I think it's about 2 minutes in the series, but on set it was like 40 minutes in one take. She couldn't stop doing it, and I think she's a guy and she had a heart on and stuff like that. So I had
It was one of my favorite scenes
she's
ever.
funny as well. That's why you empathize with her, because she's like off the hook and she's funny, even if she's like a human trafficker, but she's fun.
Yeah, and actually that scene, we went to a strip club, her and me. We did, visited a lot of strip clubs for research, and we saw this, right? Research. Oh my God. Okay, we gotta wrap this up, people. We'll take research. Oh my God. Okay. So, are there any other questions?
Yes. Any other questions? Very good. One there.
We were going somewhere.
No, but I was just gonna say that we actually witnessed that. Remember the older.
And that was very awkward.
Yeah, it was very awkward.
You were getting one.
Yeah, but that was awkward too. She bought me a lap dance. But anyway, okay, here we go. You want to ask something?
Hi. Hi, talk van je werk. Ik ben helemaal verliefd op Esther. Maar Sylvia is dus een beetje heel gecompliceerd. My question is actually about your two characters. And I'm so happy that Halina kind of touched on it, that they do have an interesting bond. Because they're so different.
Yes.
And you would think that because they're diametrically opposed different, they wouldn't really like each other very much. And I think that the opposite is true. But I'm very confused. So what do they make of each other?
Yeah,
I mean, so
we don't spoil it.
have you seen more? No, you haven't. You've only seen this.
I've seen the whole thing.
Oh, you've seen the whole thing.
Careful, don't
You've
overspoil
seen the
it.
whole thing.
Oh,
Yeah. I think there's a lot of hate between them. It's push and pull. They're total opposites. They come from very different economic and social layers of society. So they're a very odd couple. I love it. I think it's great, and of course we enjoyed so much playing that together. And there's a lot of humor, like Wouter says, in both characters. I feel after this episode becomes more funny even. But yeah, those I think it's a little bit like Thelma and Louise. I mean, but I won't talk about it anymore because everybody just has to watch it, right?
Yeah.
We'll almost thank you very much.
Thank you so much for coming. Sorry for all our jokes. Thank you.